What's the most powerful question ever asked? Not the smartest, not the longest, just the most powerful. And what if it's only one word, three letters, and it's responsible for almost every discovery, invention, and breakthrough in human history? It's why. I'm Vienna, like the city in Austria, not the sausage. I'm 15 years old, and my mom and I have traveled to 20 countries across 5 continents since I was 5. By the end of this video, I'm going to tell you about a question my mom asked, and it might change how you think about your own growth. Why? People often ask me about what my favorite country is. That's not the question I think about most. The question that changed me the most is much smaller. Why? Every country does things differently. People eat at different times, go to school differently, build cities differently, celebrate differently, raise children differently. Every time I noticed one of those differences, my brain asked the same question, quietly, almost without me choosing to ask it. Why? That one question changes everything. Think about almost every great discovery in history. Someone asked why. Why do apples fall? Why do people get sick? Why can't humans fly? Progress almost always begins with someone refusing to stop asking questions. Children ask why naturally. Researchers have found that young children ask hundreds of questions each day, often using why as a way to understand how the world works. As we get older, many of us become less likely to ask those questions out loud. We start worrying about looking uninformed instead of staying curious. Not because we know everything, because being afraid of looking like we don't. One of my favorite parts of traveling is becoming a beginner again. I don't know the customs, I don't know every word in the language, I don't know every tradition. So I ask, and every question teaches me something. I've never been embarrassed by learning, only by the opportunities I missed because I didn't ask. Travel taught me one habit. Instead of asking, is this strange? I asked, why does it work here? That one shift changed how I see the world. Curiosity builds bridges. Judgment builds walls. Then I started wondering how many beliefs that I have never questioned. Why do I think success looks like this? Why do I think this is normal? Why do I assume my way is the only way? There's a version of this idea coming later, involving $50 I started investing at 14, and it's the moment that actually reframed how I think about growth. Questions are like keys. The right one can unlock a door you didn't know existed. The wrong question can keep you trapped for years. Think about the questions we ask ourselves every day. Why does this always happen to me? Why am I not good enough? Why can't I do that? Those questions have answers too. The problem is they usually build a life based on limitations instead of possibility. Travel taught me to ask different questions instead. Instead of, is this the right way? I ask, can I learn from this? Instead of, why are they different? I ask, what experiences make them think this way? Instead of trying to win the conversation, I try to understand it. And something amazing happened. My world got bigger. Not because I traveled farther, because I thought differently. The people I admire aren't the ones with all the answers, they're the ones who never stopped asking questions. Scientists ask questions, inventors ask questions, explorers ask questions, great teachers ask questions, the best leaders ask questions. The people who continue growing are usually the people who stay curious. I promised that $50 would come back, and here's exactly where it does. Questions don't change what you know, they change who you become. If you constantly ask, how can I help? You'll probably become generous. If you ask, what can I improve today? You'll probably keep growing. If you ask, what can I learn from this? Even failure becomes a leader. When I started investing $50 a month at 14, most people would look at that number and ask, why bother? That's not going to do anything. I asked a different question. What could this become? Not what is $50 today? What does $50 become if I keep asking that question every single month until I'm 65? At 10.5% compounded monthly, the answer is $1.2 million. Looking back, I think that's one of the greatest questions we can ask ourselves. Not why isn't this bigger yet, but what could this actually become if I stay with it? The quality of your life often follows the quality of your questions. Every country has asked different questions throughout history. How should we build our cities? How should families spend time together? How should we educate children? How should we solve our problems? The answers are difficult, but the willingness to ask the question is what moves humanity forward. I've also noticed that even failure becomes a teacher the moment you ask, what can I learn from this, instead of why did this happen to me? The question decides whether the moment becomes a wall or a door. Your future might not change because you found the perfect answer. It might change because you finally asked the right question. So here's the question I want to leave you with. What's one belief you never questioned, simply because you've always believed it? Maybe it's about success, money, school, or even yourself. People sometimes ask me, what's been the greatest lesson from visiting 20 countries? It isn't a landmark, it isn't a meal, it's one small word. Why? Because every time I ask it, the world's a little bigger, and so do I. I'm 15. This is what traveling and watching my mom build a life has personally taught me. Comment below one belief you never questioned until right now. Share this with a friend who you think needs to hear this. Subscribe to Wandering Vienna if you haven't yet. Hit the like button. It tells the algorithm you liked this content. I post content like this every single week, and I don't want you to miss what's coming. I'm Vienna. This is Wandering Vienna. And there's always more to explore. Bye!